Welcome, everybody. My name is Nicole Desane. I'm the founder of the HR Hackathon Alliance. Um, what is the HR Hackathon Alliance? For those of you who are not familiar with us, we are a community, a global community at this point, of HR rebels who are interested in using design thinking to solve some of our most complex problems in HR. At this point, we have ideated more than 850 solutions and ideas in our hackathons. We collaborate with 12 and more partners across the world who bring HR Hackathon to their cities. And so our signature event is the HR Hackathon, which is an ideation session where a challenge host brings a problem that they have for public ideation. And usually it ends with, we ideate a bunch of solutions and then the challenge hosts take them and we don't know what happens. So until now, because one of our recent challenge hosts, Amy Bastuga, who is the Chief People Officer at Radio Flyer, who was the challenge host for us in Chicago exactly a year ago, she graciously agreed to let us peek behind the scenes of what happens when what happens after, what happens after the hackathon and what happens with the ideas 1 year in. So welcome, Amy, and thank you so much again for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you for having me here today, and thanks for coming to a hackathon with us and for us.
Yeah. And so the way we thought this could work is some of you provided already questions beforehand, so thank you for that. So I'll start with mine and your questions that were provided beforehand. And then if you have more questions, please put them in the chat and we'll get to them as we go through the conversation. So Amy, first of all, I'm curious, why did you decide to become an HR Hackathon challenge host and provide, a challenge of your company for public ideation? And I'm asking that also, from the background that we're expanding to new cities. And so this might be new for people. And, why should a company, a CHO or somebody bring a challenge for public ideation? Like, how did you, how did it come that you say, yes, I'm going to do that?
All right. So there were internal and external reasons for it. At Radio Flyer, part of our vision is that we believe that we can be a force of good in the world and that with creativity and commitment, anything can happen. So if you just listen to that phrase, being a force of good in the world, and if you think about part of what we're here to do is to imagine and build a better world. So for us, that has always been building a better world internally at Radio Flyer for our flyers who are our employees. And we have been on this journey, to be a great place to work and to be an inclusive place to work. And throughout our journey, we realized that part of inclusion was really grounded in being a more diverse place to work and that we needed to do more work to continue to become more diverse. So while we were on this journey, we had a high level of trust internally. And so then we get to the external piece. We needed help, just like anything, when you're always looking internally and you have your biases and your ideas and how can we become better, we were like, we need external perspective. And so that's where, through partnership with you, there was also this high level of trust, a high level of trust with the HR community and other organizations and these wonderful leaders and Troy and Latanya to come in and help share their stories to help leverage this brilliance in the room to come up with better ideas. So for us, the decision started with an internal need and then coupled that with let's be vulnerable and invite the external community in to help us. And then the outcome is not only do we win, 30 to 40 companies also walk away, hopefully doing more good in their organizations.
Yeah. And not only, I mean, I love that, bring in fresh ideas and be open to share that. And so, yeah, it's usually challenges we pick that apply to many organizations. So the 30 people that were there, and then we also put the ideas on our website. So others, we freely share the posters and the videos on our website. And I'm going to put a link in there so you can check out the ideas. But Amy, you let's see, why don't you I know you brought something for us to share visually, because I want to talk a little bit about, maybe let me reframe a little bit what an HR hackathon is, because that question came up really quickly for people, so they understand the flow, and then maybe you can reflect on your experience during the hackathon and share the ideas, the challenge and the ideas that came up, and then what you've done with them. So maybe let's do that. So what is an HR hackathon? So we in essence take what I call design thinking methods light and apply them to this challenge that gets posed to us. And the way we structure an HR hackathon is we have first what we call an insights panel, and Amy referenced that. In our case, we had, and I see Latanya, hi Latanya. So Latanya, the wonderful author of Leading Below the Surface, and Troy McIntosh, and then Amy were panelists. And so the purpose there is to surface some non-obvious insights as inspiration for the group. And then we use that as a starting point for small group ideation, which we do in 3 steps. So we start by, coming up with a lot of ideas, and in design thinking, it's called, in order to have one good idea, you have to have many first. So you see that's where all the post-its come in. So that's the first step. And then people, the small groups, pick their top idea. And then they create what we call an idea poster. It has a headline, an image, and a 1 sentence that anybody can understand, even when they weren't at the hackathon, right? So, so in the end, we come up with, 5 to 6 top ideas that then each table presents. We also take a little video of it. Also, it gets put on our website. And then the challenge host, in this case, Amy, gets a chance to sort of reflect on all the ideas that have come up with. The groups have come up with. So that's sort of the high level structure. So having said that, Amy, reflecting back on sort of that experience, what were some highlights for you as you remember that experience?
Yeah, when I think back to that day, one of the things that I remember was just being amazed with how much efficiency was in the energy and ideas and the bonding that occurred in the room. So that might be a strange word to use for this format, but I remember seeing individuals that had never met before instantly start sharing their own stories and their own experiences to then channel that into what ideas can we come up with, and then share and report out with this other larger group of individuals. So the other thing that I remember is when people were leaving saying, oh my goodness, I didn't get enough time to talk to that group over there. So it left everybody wanting more, which I felt was just amazing, because that meant that everyone was going to take a little piece of what they learned there, and they wanted more, so they were going to continue the dialogue when they left the room. So I found that particularly inspiring, just about how everybody just showed up, and the ideas were great. So when we talk about them, you'll get to hear more about those.
Yeah, so let's pull it up, and while Amy pulls that up, just a reminder again, we have some prepared Q&A, but please put any additional questions you might have for Amy in the chat, and we'll get to them as we talk through it here.
All right. Are we up? We up?
Yep. Well, yep. There it is.
There we go.
There we go. Perfect. Yeah, so this is the challenge that Amy and her team brought to us, that we hacked. And in design thinking, we always craft a problem and reframe it into an opportunity. And we use the phrase, how might we? Right. And I kind of love that framing, because sometimes we get so stuck in the problem, and we have this problem, and this little sort of twist of framing, I think, is a much more like positive way, right? And it points to that there are possibly solutions. So in this case, it was how might we create a psychologically safe work environment for people from marginalized groups to empower their voice, ideas, concerns, needs, and careers. And you see that we took a lovely picture afterwards in the wonderful Radio Flyer offices of the group. So that was lovely with everybody's poster. So Amy, you want to go through the ideas? And I was actually impressed because sometimes challenge hosts maybe pick one idea, I think, to implement. And I think you've actually are looking at all of the ideas and trying to experiment with them. So do you want to walk us through that?
Yeah, I have a wonderful team and a wonderfully inspired community at Radio Flyer. So what I would say is that from this challenge, there was certainly inspiration taken from every group idea that we were trying to see if they could plant seeds and take flight, at Radio Flyer. And one of the things that we learned before I go through all of this is that we don't have to have all of the answers. And we also learned that we don't have to have um, perfectly planned out programs. And so as I go through each idea, that will be a common theme that you see, because a lot of times with HR programs and HR training, there's a lot of research out there, there's a lot of formulas, there's a lot of best practices. However, in this diversity and inclusion journey, it is so personal to the individuals that are in that room at that moment, that are in that team meeting or that are in that project group. It is just so personal. We realized that we couldn't, and it wasn't helpful to over program. And we realized that once with a little more freedom, that it actually created more of a sense of belonging by having a little less structure. So that's just one thing that really surprised me as we were going through the ideas and things that we were implementing. All right, so here was one of the posters from the group, and it was Shine a Spotlight. And so their idea was share successes by individuals and highlight individual vulnerability, their successes, provide them a safe space, and include the supportive environment of the organization. So I had mentioned that we had a high trust environment, so we felt like we could experiment with more. And so this idea in terms of shining a spotlight has really expanded. Prior to the hackathon, we had started this concept called community conversations, and this was grounded in educating our flyers and connecting with our community outside of Radio Flyers. So we would bring in individuals from underrepresented organizations to have them talk about their organization, talk about their personal stories. So what the hackathon did for us is we then started including our own flyers. So for Autism Awareness Month, two of our parents that have children that have autism came and talked about their stories. They talked about Cole and Antonio, and we also had external partners there. So we allowed them this space and this way to share and create this deeper understanding. And we did the same thing for Hispanic Heritage Month and also for Pride Month. And it was fantastic. What we realized also is that this was an opportunity for each one of these individuals to grow as we were working through them or with them to prepare for sitting in front of a group of their peers and have a microphone and be on stage, that you could see the personal growth through them reflecting on their stories and then ultimately sharing their stories. And then at the same time, when you looked in the eyes of all of the flyers, you could see the smiles, you could see the tears, you could see the understanding and sort of this melting of walls that was just happening. And to be there to experience it, like I almost get the chills talking about it, because this has truly just been something that's absolutely beautiful, that was inspired by this individual spotlight and space.
Thank you. That's lovely.
But then we took it a step further. And then after they did all this, we posted them on social media. So we videotaped portions of their stories and were thinking about it and said, we have a brand, we talk about our employment brand, we talk about our employees. This is all part of our diversity, inclusion, and belonging committee. So Lisa sat down and did more one-on-one structured interviews with each one of them, and we videotaped them, and then we shared them with the LinkedIn and social media world to elevate their voice even further, and to make the spotlight even brighter. I mean, this metaphor with spotlight, I'm so into it. We have so many things where we're just talking about spotlight, spotlight, spotlight. um, and it's true, once you put something out there, it does have this compounding impact with people hearing their stories and hopefully learning and being inspired by it.
Love that. Thank you. And I love the spotlight and how that visual, and that's part of the reason also why we make people draw in
Uh-huh.
design thinking, which is especially hard for us as non-designers. We always feel like
Hmm.
we're not creative, but
Hmm.
that's where, some of these visuals, so storytelling is also considered visualization of ideas,
Hmm.
actually, and so is drawing, right? So the combination of the two just touches so many different parts of our body and emotions than just words can. So thank you.
Hmm. Yes. And the drawings were quite effective.
Yeah, look at
We'll
this
go
one.
on to the
What
next
is
one.
this? Speaking of,
So another group talked about flyer inclusion groups. So fly in inclusion groups that flyers can fly in and out of as their identities evolve. So this particular concept was helpful, and the discussion around it was really helpful for us because we had headed into this with kind of a fixed mindset around ERG groups. And our concern around ERG groups was that we had a lot of onlys. We weren't a very large organization. So we had this fear about starting too many ERG groups and then sort of highlighting um, individuals that maybe didn't see other people like them or have similar experiences as we were continuing to become more diverse. So this one for us was really helpful because what we realized is that we could just try. We don't have to have something that is completely defined. We don't have to project our fears onto individuals, into marginalized groups. And so what we did is we started to say, okay, how might we start this? How might we do this? And so that led to us starting a parent ERG group because we were thinking about what scope of our population, is there a large groups with a lot of diversity in it where we might be able to start these conversations and the safe space. So we had already had parent panels. We had already had feedback from parents. We had already adjusted our parental leave policies, and we have very generous stuff that goes on, but also knew that there was a need for that emotional support. So we decided to start there. So insert, second learning. So one was just start and see what happens. And so that's amazing. Um, they started doing it and they love it, and it's informal. We don't have to overprogram it. So then, as we were talking to other individuals and getting feedback about how to evolve this, we were challenged with, well, parents aren't a marginalized group. So, are you really serving the needs of marginalized employees? So, there's assumptions in there. So we decided to continue with the parent ERG and felt very comfortable with it because a lot of marginalized individuals were also parents. So we said we are definitely hear you that you are right. Maybe we aren't taking enough steps quick enough in the other areas to challenge our assumption about the population and the power of these groups. So then we did start a Pride ERG group, and that has been phenomenal in terms of all of the individuals I identify, in that community. We have a large community, and they they felt really seen by providing this opportunity to create their own space. And from talking to several of the individuals in that group, they said, I've always felt like I could be authentic here. They said, I've never felt that anywhere else. And they said, by creating this group, this one young man was like, even that lunch was just amazing that we had our own lunch, our own time to just talk. And he was saying, and this was even though he felt authentic, he just felt more seen by us
Mm,
doing this, labeling it, and sometimes things are about labeling it. This is an ERG group. Um, I talked a lot about how we didn't label our diversity, inclusion, and belonging committee. We just were doing the work. And one of my big learnings was sometimes you need a label to shine a spotlight on it because
mm,
it's telling people that you're being intentional. So again, I relearned this by saying we just don't want people to feel like they could be authentic. Let's make them feel special and label it, so they have and we have the Pride at Radio Flyer ERG group now and the Parents at Radio Flyer ERG group, all since the hackathon.
mm. Love
So,
that. And that's, yeah, this special space and to be seen and to be in community with, a group you identify with. And I love that you created that space, but also that point around not overstructuring. Because I know that's something we suffer, especially in HR from, right? We want everything to be perfect, everything to be
mhm,
designed. So
mhm,
it's perfect, right? But like perfect for whom? I've been thinking a lot about that, right?
mhm,
Is it really serving the community that we want to serve, or is it just up to our design standards of HR designers, right? So I
mhm.
love this that you're questioning your own assumptions through this whole process, right? So thank you for sharing that.
Yes, and it's been a gift to us. Um, and so maybe this is the space and the ideas that, again, just encouraged us to keep challenging our assumptions. So these two groups were about creating more spaces for listening, validating, seeking examples, making sure that managers were being really open, and also intentionally engaging diverse peers to helping to come up with solutions to problems and challenges. So these two ideas and concepts, what I would say is that we had a lot of things in place. Then we took inspiration from this and kind of took it to the next level. Um, so here's some fun things, more fun things to share. So we have and had a diversity, inclusion, and belonging advisory board. And so these individuals do help us and advise us on the programs that we do, advise us on the education that we do. They help facilitate discussions, facilitate training, facilitate fun in the area of inclusion. And so and also policies and things like that. So we had this group established, and then this year each one of them is assigned, a special role and then also invited to share their own stories. Some of the individuals on the diversity, inclusion, and belonging advisory board were individuals that we included in the community conversations. So they were the ones that were modeling and having the opportunity to share their stories. So that's like an elevation of including them and having them share with all flyers. The second thing that we did was that we took this concept, design thinking is it's to be applied to all problems and to our design process. Our designers do design thinking all the time, and we decided to take this concept to our strategy meeting and focus on business problems. And so
Mm-hmm.
we called it Spotlight on Solutions. And so what we did is we created cross-functional teams and we had, as you can see, Arpit, who's on our diversity, inclusion, and belonging committee, lead, this particular discussion around that particular problem. Each group decided their own business problem, and we spent a whole like 3/4 of a day. They did brainstorming, they did ideation, and then they reported out on what the potential solutions were, and then that went back to the departments. And then in June of this year, there was some follow up on some of the system implementations that were made in quality that had to do with product samples and a process that was improved. So we took this from diversity and inclusion to elevate this with solving a business problem. We are everybody wants everything to wants everyone's talents to be used. Diversity, inclusion, and belonging is providing everybody the opportunity to thrive. And when we're talking about opportunity to thrive at work, it's about contribution. It's about participation in the success of the company. It's about then also being acknowledged and promoted for your contributions. So we wanted to keep taking this from I feel good, I feel safe, to I'm contributing, I'm learning, and I'm impacting the business. So this is how we sort of elevated and took inspiration from that concept about problem solving and leveraged it.
Love that so much. Yeah, I talk a lot about using design thinking and strategy design
Mhm.
um, instead of the traditional top-down
Mhm.
process, right? Where that causes actually strategy failure or failure in execution of strategy a lot of times. That the bottoms-up approach, meaning including more people in strategy co-creation, can actually result in better strategy execution down the line, right? So,
Mhm.
because to your point, people are part of it, people are part of shaping the strategy, which then they get to implement, right? It's a
Mhm.
different kind of approach. So, I love how you broaden the scope and not only use the individual ideas, but also the concept of human-centered design and applying it to other areas. Thank you for sharing that. That's really inspiring.
Mhm. Right?
What
It
else
is.
do you have for us, Amy? Man, I'm
Yeah.
like sitting on the edge of my seat. This is so
I
cool.
told you it was a very inspiring group, and um it was a beautiful morning. This hackathon was quite productive and inspiring for us and my team. So belonging must be nurtured. Um, so this is about this ongoing awareness and nurturing. They use the analogy of the flower. There's lots of different flowers in your garden. Some need sun and shade. So highlighting the different needs of individuals and also this concept of nurturing. So this was something that, traditionally we were really good at, based on feedback, based on the surveys, and based on, the results of individuals working in our community. So we wanted to continue doing these things and remind ourselves that the things that we're investing in and the time that we're allocating is important and it's making a difference. So this reinforced some of the keep doing things. So I'll just highlight two that are just very fun and are, some of our favorite days at Radio Flyer. So one is Taste of Radio Flyer, where we use food to celebrate our diversity and individual heritage. And so not only do we have individuals bring in food that tap into a warm memory or something that reminds them of their childhood, we're also having individuals share their stories. So they bring in the food, and then we're, putting on display the story that's associated with the food. And then also we play a fun Kahoot game, because then it's a contest. Do you remember the story? Like, was it Jessica's aunt or grandmother that gave her the recipe, for that? Or, what country was Jacob's grandfather from? Or, whatever the story was, we're also having fun with it and turning into a very playful contest so that people are then, reinforcing and remembering, these stories, in addition to eating amazing food and lots of love and laughter that goes on during that time. And then, so that's one of the things that we continue doing and we invest in,
Love
and
it.
it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Then the second thing that we continue doing and that we invest in, and I use the word invest because these things are time. So we
Mm-hmm.
have time during the workday where we are inviting people to participate in these things. We do it because we believe it makes sense. It feels good and it makes sense for the business to continue to help people feel safer and to get to know each other better so that the collaboration is stronger. So we continued to invest in this other wonderful program that we have. It's called Slice of My Life. Now, this was born during the pandemic because Taste of Radio Flyer was so popular and everyone was working at home. We're like, what do we do? We can't like deliver food to everyone's houses. Like, what can we do to um, keep the spirit of this sharing So we decided to go with a food analogy, which was pizza. And we created this sequence of activities and discussions around we all have a pizza and we all have layers. And so each time we have a discussion, we talk about a particular slice of our life. So
Mm.
one slice could be share someone that was very inspiring to you. Another slice could be tell us about something you're very proud of. Another slice could be tell us about your favorite Chicago memory and why and with who. Or it could be tell us about a particular challenge you overcame. Or another slice is tell us about a value. And so we started doing these virtual sessions, and then which allows us to take in bite-sized pieces. I'm laughing at my own metaphors here, but it really does allow you to take it in bite size, one topic at a
There's a
time. You
food
can,
theme here for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, 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 and
Oh,
you can do these in
love it.
15 minutes, 30 minutes, so this time is very flexible with it. And then, of course, when we were all back together, we did have a pizza party, and then people were able to talk about it in person. So this is the part of the nurturing, because that this slice of my life could have gone away. We could have been like, oh, the pandemic's over, we're back in person. But we continued it because it was something that we felt could continue to nurture the culture. And we also do it with all of our interns so that they have that experience over the summer. And it's a really wonderful, flexible way to keep, allowing this space for individuals.
Nancy's saying you're making us all hungry, Amy. But yeah, I mean, food is such an important. It reminds me of the quote by Anthony Bourdain, the late Anthony Bourdain, that I t tend to quote. Eat. It goes something along the lines, eat people's food, and it helps you, really walk in somebody else's shoes through the lens
Mhm,
of food. So that's what it reminds me of. That he was very good
mhm,
at exploring and honoring other people's cultures through their food. So I love that.
mhm.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
Uh,
More.
there
Ah,
was a
there's
lot of groups.
more.
There was a lot of groups. There was a lot of groups, and they
So many.
all. So from us to us, this was all about pulse surveys, and then just effectively shaping our policies. We've always, I will use the word, been obsessed with feedback and surveys. We conduct a lot throughout the course of the year. We post our results. We meet with flyers. We implement ideas just very quickly. So now it's just part of our fabric. Um, so one thing that we did do differently was right around the time of the hackathon is that we did conduct and participate in a survey that was specifically focused on being an inclusive workplace. And so the questions were 100% geared towards belonging and inclusion and things that impact underrepresented individuals. And so that was wonderful. We got acknowledged for being an inclusive workplace. Um, and one of the things that it highlighted for me was we need to ask our questions differently. Because I noticed
Mm,
on this survey, we got more ideas, and it was because of the way that the questions were posed, saying specifically related to you and your identity. What could the organization do? Instead of just saying, what
mm,
can the organization do to make your employee experience better?
yeah.
Just by inserting the words, what could the organization do better for you and others like you? Like just really making it personal. I noticed that we got more direct ideas. So I thought that that was just a beautiful reframing of words. And then I started doing CPO roundtables, because of the follow-up question. Surveys are getting us so far. So
Hmm.
we've had about four of them, and they've been great. And not just because of the ideas that are coming out of it, but just it's an opportunity for people from other departments to be solving problems or talking about things together. So that's been a beautiful investment of time. And again, I'm going to bring time up again because I know for organizations, all of this stuff is about negotiating time. So these CPO roundtables, they're about an hour and a half of my time once a quarter, and it's one of the best investments of 6 hours of time, throughout the entire year, coupled with other things that I do. this Slice of My Life and this Taste of Radio Flyer. Taste of Radio Flyer is about a 3-hour commitment, and people are eating. And it's amazing and it's very impactful. And then the Slice of My Life, like I said, it's a very flexible investment of time. You can do this with teams, you can do this cross-functionally, and they can take anywhere between 15 minutes and an hour and a half, depending on how large your group is. So really, this inspiration was just honing in on how are we using the data, how are we gathering data, and just made us, just think more clearly or sharply about it.
I love that a combination because I always say the survey data, you find out a lot of the what.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then you need to follow up with qualitative methods like the round table
Mm-hmm.
to understand the why behind
Mm-hmm.
it. So and combine the two. So I love how you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And also
Mm-hmm.
what you mentioned about, in essence, you're giving people the gift of time, right? And you're valuing their time, but you're also saying we're making space and
Mm-hmm.
time because these things are important. So
Mm-hmm.
thanks for
Yes.
sharing that. So that
Yes.
was, oh, this is a beautiful logo here to
Oops.
close us off from that.
Yes, this is our diversity, inclusion, and belonging committee and logo. And I'm going to
Wonderful.
stop sharing. Here we go.
Yeah. This is so cool. Thanks for walking us through sort of step by step all the ideas and what you've done with them specifically. And again, folks, if you want to put questions in the chat, please do so. But I want to sort of do a click up from this very specific conversation a little bit and sort of a little bit talk about the meta level, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um, overall, what were sort of your lessons learned as you experimented with the ideas, as the ideas come up and then as they hit the organizational context, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes things work out, sometimes things don't.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people also ask about these things, right? What were some of the biggest challenges you faced? What surprised
Mm-hmm.
you?
Mm-hmm.
Things like that.
I would say that the one thing that I need to continue to just keep in mind is that because this is such an individual journey, but yet you're trying to do it on such a global scale, we have to allow space for grace. And what I mean by that, there's a few different things there. So one is that one thing that somebody feels as if it's an amazing opportunity for them to share and feel a sense of belonging. Somebody else could be sitting right next to them saying, this is the most uncomfortable thing that I've ever had to sit through, and I'm not comfortable being here.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to allow space for both and show the restraint to not react to everybody's reaction, but yet respond. And responding is, well, everybody, if you are uncomfortable, you're welcome to leave, versus shutting down a conversation or allowing people, if you would like to continue talking, you can stay longer and continue talking. So for me, it was showing this restraint and allowing space for grace for all reactions to these bonding moments, this space, because sometimes people have different readiness levels. And so I had shared about the ERG that we had this readiness, and the individuals are responding very favorably to it. But that doesn't mean everyone's showing up to the ERG, and that's okay. So it's trying to remember to remove um, judgment and take action too quickly, which is really hard in a business setting. We have to allow this space for grace. And so the space for grace is this common theme. And I remember the first time I was thinking this was actually at the hackathon when I was talking to Troy and Latanya. And Troy, who has experience doing larger scale initiatives, and he was just talking about the grace and the space he was giving others. And so it wasn't until, I was reflecting on this past year that I was going back to that moment where he was telling me in that moment that you have to give this space for grace because there is no perfect formula.
Mm.
Um, and so that So that's just something that I would say is a learning, and I have to remind myself every time after we do something is don't overprogram, don't overjudge, just make sure that our language is providing room for all, because it's really hard to not want to fix something and improve something when you are in a business setting with a business mindset.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. Really challenging our way of operating almost when it comes
Mhm,
to these conversations, right? Because
mhm,
in the end, we're human, and these connections and conversations are very human. And, you know,
mhm,
sometimes emotions are there, or often emotions are there. And that's also something that we traditionally don't like welcome in the workplace,
mhm,
emotions, right? So,
mhm, mhm,
and all kinds of emotions. So, I love that Nancy also in the comments reinforced that space to, to accommodate emotions and levels of readiness as well, right? And acknowledging that people come from different readiness levels.
mhm,
We also had a question because this challenge circled around the concept of psychological safety, which of
mhm,
course a lot of companies you know, are trying to wrap their heads and hearts around how to get better at that, right? So the question was, how has your understanding maybe or your application of psychological safety evolved over the last year?
mhm. Yeah, I would say for this, it's showing the discipline and teaching managers um, to just be patient as people are feeling more psychologically safe so that we keep the door open by not reacting and by just exercising the patience for individuals to come to their own conclusions and solutions. Um, and what we have found is that once people have felt more comfortable, they do have more input, but they aren't ready for action. And
Mm,
so I would
mm,
say that what I've learned is just it's a beautiful thing, and you have to sit in patience and let things evolve in the right time. There's always a right time for everything, and the right time isn't always now for an individual and for corporate cultures. So I would say in time, it will be the right time to evolve something or take action on something.
mm. I like that. Yeah. Again, teaching us, especially those of us who are type A drivers,
Mhm.
a little bit of patience.
Mhm.
Oh, I love that. I got one more
Mhm.
question for you. Wow, I have trouble speaking this morning. It's Friday. What advice do you have for other organizations? So either as they contemplate, maybe bringing a challenge to a hackathon format or
Mhm.
contemplating whether they should do that or not, or what challenge,
Mhm.
and or as they're experimenting with ideas in general or specifically around this topic. Anything you want to
Mhm.
sort of talk
Mhm.
about in terms of
Mhm.
what might help other organizations take what you learned and
Mhm.
apply it to their context.
It's three words, just do it.
Mm,
It's
mm-hmm,
just do it. You have to take whatever that first step is. That first step can be something as big as giving a proposal to the executive team, or it can be as simple as coordinate an ERG brainstorm group or a pilot group or schedule one activity or do one focus group. It's really just do it because no action is action. And I
mm,
think that for
mm-hmm,
organizations for so long, um, intentions were there, but because of fear or not knowing or time or investment or priorities, whatever the barriers were, just do it is my best advice. Just do something. And you will see that then that will be the seed that then, you can start to nurture and it can grow and it can evolve. I think that we just have to get out of our way of overthinking.
I love that. How do you, let's just build on that because from an HR lens, you
Hmm.
tend to imagine all the things that could go wrong in that
Uh-huh.
scenario, right? When you say,
Uh-huh.
just do that, how do you get yourself and your leaders to prepare to be in that space because things also will go wrong. If you just do
Hmm.
things, things will go wrong. That's just
Hmm.
comes with that approach.
Hmm.
How do you get yourself comfortable
Hmm.
and courageous enough to step into that space?
Hmm. I think one is owning that it's gonna be all about the learning. So, like most
Mm-hmm.
situations, it's what do you expect? What happened? And then how do you feel about what happened? And was it what you expected?
Mm-hmm.
So, when I'm leading now with things that are new, we say, okay, this is a learning opportunity. Our intention of doing this is to learn. That's different than saying our intention of doing this is to fix all of this or make everybody feel included and as if they belong. Our goal is to learn if this activity, strategy, program will lead to greater sense of belonging.
Mm-hmm.
So you state it as a learning objective versus this shall achieve this result.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that was the biggest barrier in framing because then once you head into something to learn, and of course you're reporting out on the results and the outcome, um, it changes the entry to barrier. It changes sort of the judgment that's going on, whatever the proposal is. So I would say framing it as learning was one of the things that was really helpful to remove the barrier because then afterwards you say, what did I learn?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the accountability. And then you get to the result and what are you doing different
Love
going
that.
forward?
Love that. And we got another question coming in. How might we best support managers and or what have you done? This is a new way of leading or managing for many.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have a management development program, and so we um, have always been trying to build their toolbox with, communication, self-awareness, all of the things that are necessary to have an inclusive environment. So what we've done is we've tried to build their confidence. So anytime we are having an education or diversity conversation, Lisa, our diversity, inclusion, and belonging lead, and Lucy and the committee are helping to come up with facilitator talking points and education like pre-reads so that they can read the information, their teams can read information so that they feel more prepared to have a discussion. So it's about that building their confidence and building their actual skills by investing time in teaching them how to facilitate a discussion. And then we go at their comfort level too. Now all of our managers are leading these discussions. At the beginning, it was HR and the senior leaders. And so after, years of doing these, there is this natural evolution that everybody grows more comfortable. So we model it, we teach it, they practice it, and then unleash them.
Model,
Model, teach,
teach,
practice,
practice,
unleash, unleash.
unleash, unleash. I
Unleash
love
their
that.
potential, unleash their potential. So,
I love that. And that combined with that learning mindset, and
mhm,
the experimentation mindset is so powerful. Um, I put for everybody, I put just the link. As I said, we publish all the ideas on the HR Hackathon Alliance website. So if you want to check out all the great ideas that Amy talked about, the posters are there as well as the little video clips. And I just want to say so like from the bottom of my heart and from all of us, thank you for sharing that journey with us. I'm just amazed by what you've accomplished
mhm,
in the course of the year with the mantra of, just do it and be courageous in what you do and amazing. I can't wait what else, will
mhm,
happen on this journey because as we
mhm,
know, it's a journey that's never done. So,
mhm.
but thanks for sharing this part with us and thanks for being with us and sharing all your insights. I appreciate you.
Thank you. My pleasure. I appreciate the inspiration and the partnership.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody. See you at a future HR Hackathon.
Mhm.
Bye.
Bye.